This is the Weather Lounge here at WeatherWorks.
Hello and welcome back to the Weather Lounge. I'm your host, meteorologist Brad Miller, and I thank you for tuning into our podcast. We come to you from our WeatherWorks headquarters, located in Hackettstown, New Jersey. And as always, joining me today on the podcast is fellow WeatherWorks meteorologist Mike Mahalik. Hey there, Mike.
Hey, Brad. Good to be here as always.
Yes, it is. And, we're here at the end of February, and, we have the finest producer on this podcast. So, and you know what? I think he hijacked this rundown a little bit because I don't recall seeing this until I last looked at it on Friday. So let's bring in Mike Priante, of course, our producer, but he added that he's the finest podcast producer in the business. Is this right, Mike?
I did not write that. I don't know what you're saying. I didn't write that at all. I think you're setting me up here. Are you setting me up here?
Maybe I did write it and I just don't realize it. It was a while ago.
I wouldn't self-gloat about that. I mean, maybe if I was being, I like to make things a little more difficult for both of you, but I wouldn't like self-gloat. I mean, hey now.
Hey, you're supposed to be making stuff easier for us, not more difficult.
Yeah, really.
Well, no, it adds to the value of the podcast. Adds to the fun. Maybe not for you both, but for everyone else. So that's what matters. The listeners
I see.
matter.
So you throw the curveballs to keep people's attention. Yeah.
Exactly. Yep.
Very good. All right. Well, anyway, this episode of the podcast, guys, we're talking about leap year because it's 2024, and that means it's leap year. So, we have 29 days here in February, one extra day of winter.
I was thinking the same thing. Winter is extended by one day.
Yeah.
And you want to know a fun fact about this podcast? It is the first Weather Lounge podcast on a leap day.
Yeah.
It is the 29th that this episode is coming out. That may or may not have been a decision on my part, but hey, that's all for the episode, guys. The last time we had Leap Day was 2020, and if you remember that year, that was when. Well, besides all the issues that went on, that was our inaugural year. That was when we started the Weather Lounge.
We started that summer, right?
We started in the summer, so we missed the boat.
Oh,
we missed the boat
I guess
on
we did.
Leap Day. So this is our first chance at actually doing a Leap Day episode, and so we figured, why not miss the boat again? Let's do this. So yeah, happy leap year, everyone.
Yeah.
All right, Brad. Well, let's tell our audience a little bit about why we're doing this episode anyway.
Yeah, we had to do some research on this. I mean, you think about it. Well, can't we just add or subtract a day to the calendar whenever we want? I mean, but I guess that would mess a lot of things up. So we're gonna talk about that. We're gonna link some weather data to February 29th, since it only happens once every 4 years. And so yeah, we have a little fun with it, and we'll get all to this podcast, and we'll talk much more about leap year and what a leapling is. Leapling. Yes, we'll talk about that when we come back.
Hey everyone, it's Mike Priante from the Weather Lounge here, and let me tell you, dehydration is no joke. I went through it myself once, and it's not fun. You get headaches, muscle spasms, cramps, the whole 9 yards. But proper functional hydration is essential for just about everyone. Sometimes, though, water may not be enough, and that's where Liquid IV comes in. They're the #1 powdered hydration brand in America, and their hydration multiplier is something you're most likely missing in your daily routine. You don't even have to be a sports professional to enjoy it either. With just one stick, you can hydrate twice as fast than using water alone. It has 3 times the amount of electrolytes than leading sports drinks, it's made from non-GMO ingredients, and it's chock full of essential vitamins. I personally enjoy the passion fruit flavor, but there are other great refreshing flavors you can choose from as well. So whether you're out landscaping, plowing a parking lot in a snowstorm, heading out for that afternoon jog, or even just feeling run down, Liquid IV is your go-to source for all hydration and wellness. Get 20% off when you go to liquidiv.com and use code WeatherLounge, capital W, capital L, at checkout. That's 20% off anything you order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code WeatherLounge at liquidiv.com.
And welcome back to the Weather Lounge. I'm meteorologist Mike Mahalik. I'm here with our producer Mike Priante, and of course, my co-host Brad Miller.
Yes.
And yes, we are talking about leap year in today's podcast. And to get started, I guess we'll answer the most important question.
Yeah. Why do we
Brad,
do this?
why do we do this? I know you looked it up, and I know myself, but maybe some listeners don't. And explain what's going on. Why are we just adding years or days to the calendars? Geez,
Well,
not years. My goodness.
Yeah,
that
well,
would-
technically, one regular year, we'll call it a regular calendar year. It takes us 365.2422 days to complete that orbit around the sun. So basically, 365 and a quarter. Okay.
Now, why couldn't the solar system just be
I know.
nicer to us than
I
that,
know.
right?
So to make up for it, to make up for the quarter, every 4 years we have to add one extra day to the calendar year, so we don't get all discombobulated.
Yeah.
And if we didn't do this, now the seasons would begin to drift. So think about it. If we didn't, and how long, going back to, AD and stuff, it's been 2024 years. So imagine if we didn't do that and how messed up we would be by now with the seasons. I mean, we'd basically be like winter and summer would be opposite.
Right.
I don't know. So I guess, that's why we do it. But I was just thinking, when I was
big July snowstorm coming in.
Yeah. Well, what if we went the other way? What if if we had like 364.75 days? We have to subtract a day every 4 years. So think of it that way. But yeah,
Well,
it'd be weird.
Yeah, it is true. And I do notice too that 365.2422 isn't exactly going to work out to an extra day every year either. But I was curious, so I thought, well, what do we do about this extra, this little bit that's not accounted?
There's still a little bit there left. Yeah, there's still what
Right.
0.78 of a day, or no, 0.078 of a day. Yeah.
So, Brad, do you know when the first leap day was, or at least when was the last time we said let's do this?
It's fine, Mike. You can just interrupt my train of thought. Come on, man. I was gonna explain to everybody what happens because we have this offset decimal here. But hey, whatever. You go then.
All right. No. Okay, you know what? No, how about this, Mike? You go and talk about what you were going to talk about, and then I'm going to go and talk about what I'm going to talk about. This is the problem with having two mics on a podcast. We just
two mics.
There's so many mics. I mean, we need another Brad.
There's actually 5 mics.
No, yeah, there's. Correct. Wait.
All right, I'm going to turn off my mic now.
No, there's 6. Correct. 6 mics. Oh no, 5 because we got a Brad. No, of course.
Yeah, I messed it up. 5 mics and a Brad.
Yeah, 5 mics and a Brad. You got it. Anyway, but that little extra bit that's not quite going to work out, what happens is that we skip a leap year every now and then. So here's how it works.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, this is how it works to make sure everything works out with our, weird 365.
I thought it was just straight every 4 years.
It's like pi, the way it goes, all the numbers that keep going.
3.14156.
Yeah, exactly. So this is the rule. So if the year is divisible by 100 and not divisible by 400, the leap year is skipped. So the year 2000 was a leap year, for example, but the years 1700, 1800, 1900 were not.
I gotcha. So that'll make up once every who knows how long.
Yes. So the next time we skip a leap year will be in 2100.
2100. Yep.
Yeah.
I'll be ready for it.
Yeah, you'll be ready
6
for
feet
it.
under, but
you'll be ready for it, with the worms.
Yeah.
But anyway. Speaking of things long in the distance, I always thought, this is kind of off tangent too, but I always thought when the next time Halley's Comet would come, and I know that's off in the distance too, but I think I was going to be like 90 something. So that's like my goal, right?
Yeah.
I got to make it to Halley's Comet returning.
Will you be alive in 2061?
2061?
There's a Halley's Comet? That's when it is?
That's about 38 years, I think.
Ugh.
Oh, well, of course.
All right, well, then you're going to see it. Congratulations. You're going to see it.
38 years? I mean, we'll be good.
Yeah, right.
I was 38, I'll be in my 80s, but I might
there
make
you go.
I'm trying to make it to the solar eclipse next month.
Wait, did you say 38 years?
I think 38. It's
Ooh, I might be
2061.
90.
Wow.
Oof. I don't know if I'm going to be able to see that.
Well, you might.
No, wait. It's all good. I might be 80. 80, I'll
That'd
be
be
fine.
fine.
I'll be fine at 80. 90, maybe
Imagine
not.
what the
But
telescopes would be like too in 2061.
that is true, although I
Maybe
might
able to
not be able to
touch-
see through it.
Maybe able
You
to
never
touch
know.
the comet by then.
Anyway, it would be interesting to see, what some of these telescopes do see, like the Webb telescope and all that. I don't know if they could look at it. It might be too bright. Anyway, Mike, I know I interrupted you earlier, and
No, maybe I interrupted you. Maybe it's my fault for doing this.
this is why you're only on every now and then.
This is why hey, this is not I didn't have to be here. This was Brad's idea to bring me on again. So you
Yeah.
can tell Brad, hey, Mike, we need to have Mike on again. Okay, well, here I am
It's
again.
fun
So
to have three people when we're talking about fun stuff. We just bring you in for the fun stuff, Mike.
Oh, the fun stuff. Yeah, okay. Anyway, yeah, so one thing that Brad didn't mention was that so this was initially back in 45 BC by Julius Caesar. Of course, he's the one who developed the Julian calendar, right? So that's sort of like his idea of changing the Gregorian calendar. And the idea was obviously, the rule for leap year we talked about every 4 years, you add another day. So it was all because of him, which is crazy to think about it because that was back in 45 BC. And like if you know anything about history, you know that like back in the day, I mean this is over 2000 years ago. Like the concept of science was still like not well adapted by the public. So like and even back then, like there were issues with like how, planetary um how we revolve around the sun or the sun revolves around us.
Yeah, there was some problems with that. Yeah, they weren't sure.
And you also had like a lot of religious things that got involved. I mean, we're talking like years down the road. This continued all the way through like the 1600s. There were still people saying that we revolve around the sun.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say like the flat earthers too. I mean, there's still
Well,
people out
that's
there.
that's you can't win them all. But
I
I
know.
mean, but at least in today's society, that there is a idea that we have science. But back then, almost everyone was quote unquote a flat earther. But that was because there was nobody to really say like, well, it's different because they were always seen as like crazy people. Like, oh yeah, they're whatever. His, like Galileo. Who cares about Galileo, right?
Wasn't it like Archimedes or something that figured out the Earth was round years ago?
Was it Archimedes?
I don't know.
I think we just proved it like 2 years ago that the Earth is not flat.
Oh, did we really?
Oh, yeah, okay.
No, you know what? The Earth is actually a donut. Did you hear about
Is it?
that?
Oh, my God. Okay.
Alrighty, we're getting off track. All right, so I just wanted to add my little tip. Hey, we're having fun here, right? That's why I'm here. So
You know what's amazing though is the amount of science that like back then that they could actually prove. I mean, think about it. I mean, think about the math that we all went through just to get our meteorology degrees and things like that. But think about like back in the 1300s and 1400s and how good like Julius Caesar and math and Galileo and these guys were able to, and women too. I mean, and it's crazy to think about how good math was back then.
So anyway, just to go back to the spherical Earth thing. So 500 BC, Pythagoras first proposed the Earth was spherical. So Pythagoras. Yeah,
Pythagorean theorem, probably, right?
Yeah, I think it's the same guy. So he figured that he proposed that it might be, a sphere first, and then Eratosthenes figured out that what the circumference of the proposed sphere was. So yeah, this goes back a long time.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's amazing. So now we know why we have leap year. Do you guys know what a leapling is?
is that what you call a baby frog, a leapling?
No.
Ooh, I like that. I might call them leaplings from now on.
But in this world right now, there's about 5,000 leaplings. Yeah.
Wait, there's only 5,000 people.
I'm
I
sorry,
guess...
5 million. 5 million leaplings.
Okay, I'm
My
like,
bad.
5,000 sounds really, really
Yeah.
low.
So a leapling is just someone that was born on a February 29th. So they celebrate their birth. Of course, they celebrate a birthday every year, but technically, they only enjoy their birthday.
Well, yeah, they only celebrate their birthday on technically on the
Every 4
29th.
years, yeah.
Yeah.
My uncle's a leapling, quote
Yeah, I
unquote.
know 2 people that are
So,
leaplings too.
yeah.
So do they
You know what-
celebrate on the 28th or March 1st?
March 1st. I don't know. I guess it's up to them.
It's been weird because like my uncle, like usually like whenever we celebrate it, because I have another cousin who was born on the 1st, so we usually group them together. So we celebrate their birthday on the 1st of March.
I would say the 1st of March also, yeah, because technically you still have to live through the 28th, which is always going to be there. So it would have to be either 29th or the 1st.
Exactly. So I would say the 1st is probably the more proper day to celebrate a birthday, which I imagine.
And you know what's
most
cool about
people-
leaplings is they only age 1 year every 4 years. So, I mean, there's some leaplings out there that are, 200 years old right now. Well, I'm sorry, they're 50 years old, but they're actually 200.
What? No, that's impossible. But
Other way around. Sorry.
Yeah.
Wait, how are they older?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I
They'd
said,
be
other way
younger.
around.
Sorry. Sorry. They'd be
No,
younger.
there's people that are 50 that are.
Yeah.
A person's like 20 is 5.
5. Imagine that, though. That'd be kind of cool. You only age 1 year every 4 if you're lucky enough to
Well,
be a
no,
leapling.
because then what if like you go to a bar and they ask for your ID and you're like, actually, sir.
Yeah, so I wonder how that works. They must like officially have their birthday at changed, maybe,
I guess.
to have a proper age.
Yeah.
I'd imagine it's probably something where like they probably like I guess like government wise like it's the 29th, but they probably like assume the 31st or sorry the 1st.
Yeah.
Like you can't like would they let you celebrate on the 28th or would you have
I
to
don't
wait
think
for
they
the
can because,
midnight?
yeah,
I
technically
think I think I'm gonna go with the March 1st. I think
it has to be March 1st. Yeah. It'd be midnight
So I
of March
assume
1st.
then every single place you go to legally in whatever country or whatever government you pretty much I guess would have to follow the 1st. Like your birthday is the 1st for all intents and purposes because there's no 29th every every 3 years before the leap year. So unless you're talking the year, 1900, 2100, which I guess in those years would be a little different, but
So, Brad, who do we have who are some famous people that are leaplings?
I looked up a couple. I mean, there was Dinah Shore. I mean, I only remember her from the golf tournament. They used to do the Dinah Shore golf tournament.
Oh,
I know she was an actress a long time ago. She was born in 1900 though, so I mean that's
yeah, 1916 it says.
1916, right. And then Tony Robbins,
Okay, yeah, motivational speaker. Yeah.
motivational speaker, and probably the one that I would definitely recognize is Ja Rule,
Yeah.
born in
famous
1976.
rapper,
Yeah, he's a leapling.
Superman was born on the 29th,
Was he?
apparently.
Oh, I didn't know.
Actually, like the character or the person like who played?
No. We're talking about the character,
The
Superman.
character. So we're not talking about Christopher Reeves.
Although he
or
was
something.
born on a different planet, did they do the conversion for this?
You know what? That's a good question.
He's an alien. He's not born on Earth, so he
Alien.
Well, he wasn't born on Earth, so I mean,
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that's the thing about I always found strange, this is like going kind of deep, but about time, it's just a construct that we made up to keep track of things, basically. It's like other things are more solid, like the mass of an atom, say, right? That's going to be the same no matter what. You might call it something different instead of, whatever you want to measure it in, but it's always going to be the same amount. But time, you're just kind of making it up. We made it up based on our time around the sun and the time the Earth rotates on its axis. And what's to say somebody else who lives in a different solar system said, well, what are you talking about? My year is only 250 days, and my day is 48 hours. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, I mean, based on that, you could also assume like, who's to say that an hour consists of 60 minutes? What if an hour consisted of 72 minutes? I mean, we made this up based on whatever, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, we made it up on the amount of time it takes for the planet to, like Mercury. A day on Mercury is a lot shorter than Earth versus a day on like Saturn is a lot longer than Earth because it takes that much longer to go around the sun.
Well, that's because we decided on using our earthly time construct
Scales,
based
yeah.
on scales based on that. So like if we had different views on what a day was, an hour was, then those Saturn timetables, the Jupiter timetables would change. So it
Right.
is based on us. But yes, I mean it is different on different planets in the solar
Sure.
system.
I mean, just another example would be like the speed of light, right? It's always going to be the same. Now we measure it in miles per hour or whatever we measure it in, and it might be measured in some other unit by some alien out there, but it's still going to equate to
Constant,
the
right.
same thing. So that's why I always found time interesting. But I think we're getting a little bit too off track. Should we get to the weather aspect of
Yes.
leap
Well, this is a
year?
weather podcast, so I think we probably should be talking about
Yeah,
weather,
people
right?
out there are probably thinking like, okay, Mike, enough with your time weird construct. Now you just blew my mind, and I don't know what to do about it because time's not real. Anyway, Einstein and I were talking the other day, relativity.
Good old friend Einstein. But anyway, yeah, let's jump into the weather side of things. And of course, let's bring weather because if you think about it, we talked about how a leap day occurs every 4 years. So then what happens to the weather that day? Because the 29th is such a special day, you can't say, oh, it's not a leap year. So the weather, like, what's the record for the 1st of March? Well, 1st of March happens every year.
We just skipped that day, yeah.
Just skip 29th. What happened to the 29th? Well, I have did some research, and this is courtesy of Brian Brett Schneider on Twitter/X, whatever you call it. And he 4 years ago, because we had our last leap year 2020, he listed a couple of interesting facts, basically records on the leap day. So let's start off with, because we're still in winter technically, the coldest temperatures on leap day history. In the lower 48 to start off, it was negative 42 degrees Fahrenheit in West Yellowstone, Montana in 1960.
Typical culprit, always cold out there.
Yeah, Montana. I think Montana is one of the coldest. Don't quote me on this, but I think Montana has the record for the coldest temperature in the lower 48.
Yeah, I think so.
So that would make sense. But it's not the coldest temperature in the United States on a leap day. That was in Hughes, Alaska in 1956. They got down to negative 66 degrees.
Wow.
I mean, at that point, it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
Anything past like negative 30, who cares? It's going to be probably the same feel on your skin. It's maybe like a frostbite happens faster, but it's still pretty bad.
Now, it's good that you have these national records, Mike, because we also did some records within our areas that we cover at WeatherWorks here, and we cover around the whole United States with our certified Snowfall totals product and our other products. But for our forecasting area, we have basically Chicago through the East Coast, and we had our data analyst Cody Hewitt take a look at some of those records in those zones from basically Chicago through the East Coast, like I said, since 1952. So to compare, the coldest day in that area was 0 degrees in 1980. Can you guess which major city in our zone?
It was Washington, D.C.
Yeah, pretty bad guess, Mike. Come on.
I say
anyway.
Chicago.
Chicago is right. Good job, Brad. Yeah, Chicago 0 degrees in 1980. So a far cry from 42 below and 66 below.
Yeah, no, that's I mean, can you imagine negative 66 in Chicago? I mean, a wind chill maybe, but that's still a stretch. But that'd be.
I think the all-time Illinois record is somewhere in the 20-ish below zero.
Yeah,
maybe.
I think it just gets tough to really even get that cold, because I would imagine too these cold readings in Montana are probably higher up in elevation, so your chances of even getting colder, like Illinois is a very flat state, so their elevation is not that high up, so your chances of even getting colder, you really need the best
Right.
conditions, but you probably only get to like -30 at that point. So that would make sense. I guess we want to go to let's keep the winter train
Yeah, on
going.
the flip side,
Well, before I flip to hot, let's continue the winter
the
train.
winter train.
Snowfall wise, the highest snowfall total was actually a big snowstorm that occurred in the Rocky, or not the Rockies, the Sierra Nevada, in the 40s. It was 33 inches at Cisco Ranger Station in California in 1944 on the leap day. So I mean, there might have been more. I didn't look at the record on like the 1st of March or the 28th. I don't know if there was more snow before or after that date, but what I know is on that date, the 29th, 33 inches was the highest recorded in California. Elsewhere across the country, and even into our parts of our area too, closer enough, Wyoming in 2004, in Lander, Wyoming, 21.8 inches of snow fell.
Wow.
In Wardsboro, Vermont, in 1948, 21 inches of snow fell. And tying that, 21 inches in Eklutna, Alaska in 1992. They got about the same amount of snow. So
What's with the 21?
I don't know. 21 is I don't know, just a popular number, I guess. That's just a coincidence. I was like, this can't all be right. 21 inches. But I guess let's now flip it back to you, Mike, and let's bring some Climo for snow. Now that we're still on the snow train in our regions, in Northeast, Mid Atlantic, and the Midwest.
Yeah, sure. So, we went through those years, and it's interesting too. It actually snows, I would say, quite often on leap year, compared to average. I mean, we looked at about 18 seasons. So we've seen measurable snow in places like, actually, the most days with measurable snow on leap year was actually Indianapolis.
Indianapolis, yeah.
5 out of the last 18, and that's 28%. That's actually quite high, and I didn't expect Indianapolis for that.
No.
No, I was expecting something like, I don't know, Boston or something like that. Well, Boston had 4 out of the last 18 years, so that's 22%, a little bit less.
And this is since 1952,
52,
correct?
right.
Yes.
We have 18 leap days since then.
Yeah, so we're not going through all of history, but at least through 1952. And it's interesting that we talk about measurable snow, and that's at least 0.1 inches or more. But a trace is usually recorded if there's not enough quite to register on a ruler, but there might have still been a dusting on the ground, or there might have been snow flying that day or something to that effect.
A little widely scattered coating.
Right, sure, absolutely. We used to call that a bunch of different things when I was first starting here at WeatherWorks, from spotty dustings to, some people like to call it skiff.
Skiff, I was going to say.
Skiff of snow, which I always found odd and kind of old timey. But anyway, so Chicago saw the most days since 1952, most leap days with some sort of snow flying, and that was 50%, 9 of 18, and actually tied with Boston at 50%. So there's where our Boston comes in. And as far as the most amount of snow falling on leap day since 1952, it is Hartford with 4.4 inches in 2012. So there you go. There's some stats around the areas. Now, it's funny, though, because Hartford doesn't have the most snow on the ground on that day. So that actually goes to Indianapolis at 11 inches on the ground, which is a pretty good amount for Indianapolis, I would say,
really.
based on recent
They
years.
must have gotten hit just by a storm right like that day.
Yeah, right before a leap year or something like that. Yeah, it was in 1984 that happened, to have the most on the ground. So So yeah, that's kind of our regional climo from the northeast quarter of the country. So just to kind of bring it in perspective that not everybody's going to see 21 inches of snow, like all those other places that you had mentioned.
All right, enough of winter. I'm sick of it. Let's now go into.
We still have a month left, Mike.
I know. But let's go into now the warmer side of things. So going back to the record for the hottest temperature across the lower 48, which I'm actually curious now. The lower 48 is the hottest. I didn't look up Hawaii or Alaska. So if anyone wants to look up the hottest temperature in Alaska, in Hawaii and Alaska, probably not too high, but either way, in 1940, it was actually tied in 3 places in Texas. It was Encino, Mission, and Westlaco. I think that's how I'm pronouncing it right. Westlaco, Texas. 100 degrees in 1940. It was the
Jeez.
hottest temperature. Yeah, I mean,
February 29th, 100 degrees.
yeah,
It's pretty impressive.
hottest. And then I guess in terms of precipitation, that's not wintry. Can anyone take a guess? Where was the highest amount of rainfall, like in the U.S. on the 29th? Take a wild guess.
Let's go Florida. Let's go Miami.
Okay, Mike has Florida. What do you have, Brad?
Let's
in the
go
United
with
States.
Washington, Seattle area.
Brad is half right. In the lower 48, Brad is right. The lower 48. But we're all forgetting our friend Hawaii.
Yeah.
So Hawaii has actually had multiple days of 10 inches plus on the leap day. Multiple days. Yes.
Huh.
So let's go back. So in Sappho, Washington in 1964 had the highest single day rainfall in the lower 48 on leap day of 6.28 inches of rain. That's the highest on leap day in the lower 48. Back to Hawaii, 8 separate days with 10-inch plus on leap day. So 8 out of the, I guess, last 18, I believe. I don't know if there, I mean, it may not be the last 18. It might just be 8 out of whatever in the past.
Whatever's on record, right?
Since probably 1900 or a little before that, or whenever they started.
It seems like a lot of days with
10-inch plus. Yeah.
I mean, I wonder if that would be similar if you looked up, like, I don't know, the 28th or March 1st or something like that.
It might actually. You know what, Mike? You're right, because I think the highest ever recorded the next day had 10 inches. So like the 29th had I'm about to say how much it is. It's a lot. And then the next day had 10 inches. So like they had 2 days of crazy rainfall.
Must be the rainy season.
Must be those atmospheric rivers out there.
Yeah, that could be, for sure. I mean, I don't claim to know much about Hawaii weather, but hey.
So sorry for all of our Hawaii climatologists out there that know.
Yeah, they're just like, how could you not? I'm sorry.
But the highest rainfall recorded was in, I'm going to pronounce this right, Puahakamoa, Hawaii, and it was 21 inches of rain.
Kudos on that name pronunciation, by the way.
I looked it up. I listened to it, and I spelled it out phonetically, so I wouldn't screw it up.
Perfect.
But yeah, Puahakamoa, and 21 inches of rain. That's like, I mean, that's not snow. That's rain. 21 inches.
21 again, I see.
What is up with this 21? Did I make a mistake here? Did I just keep subconsciously write? Did I write 21 subconsciously and like they actually had more?
Yeah, this is quite interesting to me. I'm sensing a pattern.
I'm gonna have to look this up because I swear that is what it was. Let me go take a look. I'm gonna look it up.
All right, you take a look, and I'll flip over to our northeast quarter of the country here a little bit. And so, 100 degrees was the hottest leap day across the nation. But this is where your DC comes in, whoever said DC earlier. 77 degrees in DC. Was the warmest.
Back-to-back years too, right? Back-to-back leap years.
Yeah, that's crazy. Same temperature, 1972, 1976. And the most precipitation within our area was, again, DC. 1.44 inches in 2012. So not 21.
I wonder if that was in the form of snow.
It was not.
Ah,
Yeah, unfortunately, it was not.
That was a warm year, I think. 2011, 2012 was a very
2011,
warm winter, I
2012.
believe.
I think you're right, Mike, but don't quote me on that.
No, I think it was because I was in high school and I remember that was a very not snowy winter.
Yeah, there was one year when I was in high school too that was very not snowy. Oh man, I don't know if it might have been 98, 99, I want to say. Somewhere in there. Oof, God.
Anyway, I
a long time
looked
ago.
up Puahakamoa and it was 1984
Okay.
for everyone that wants to know when that happened. And yes, it is 21 inches. I'm not going crazy. These numbers are all real. I don't know why. I don't know why.
1984, that's the same year where the most snow was on the ground in Indianapolis at 11.
Look at that. What a
So
year.
maybe an atmospheric river ran from
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah.
Hawaii all the way through the southern part of the country into Indianapolis. It's possible.
Well, there you go. I mean, yeah. Of course, we talked about precipitation, we talked about snow, we talked about heat, but we would be remiss to not talk about other types of weather that occurred, which of course is severe weather.
severe.
Late February into March is always a big transition month, especially March. That month is
Yeah.
a big transition month for severe weather. So back in 2012, again, 2012, bring back to that year, we had the Leap Day tornado outbreak, which actually it wasn't all on Leap Day. I mean, there were a few that happened on the 28th. There were 2 EFOs that were reported in North Platte, Nebraska.
EFOs.
EFO.
EFOs, UFOs.
EF0.
Yeah,
I always say EFOs because it sounds better than saying,
It does.
EFO has a nice ring to it. I agree.
I do like
well,
that.
why don't we say EFO?
Well, because it's a 0, Mike.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it sounds better. EFO, EF0. Like, there's just more
Thank
things
you.
to say.
Well, I think Mr. Fujita would be very upset with you.
He would be
right now.
honored, all right? Okay, let me tell you something. He'd be like, yeah, that's right. But yeah, 2 EF0s on the 28th, but a total of 42 tornadoes, a majority of those happening on the second day, the leap day. There were 10 in total EF0s, 13 EF1s, 17 EF2s, 1 EF3, and the biggest one, 1 EF4, which was Harrisburg, Ridgeway, Illinois. That was the biggest storm. All of these tornadoes spanned 7 states, $475 million in damages, and
Wow.
unfortunately 15 fatalities. So it was a pretty big event for Leap, and at the of course the biggest tornado outbreak on Leap Day.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, a lot of tornadoes. So we will see what happens in the next 4 years. There was a smaller outbreak in 1952. There were 8 tornadoes recorded, and of course there was another. Well, not an EF4, but an F4 because the enhanced Fujita scale.
That was before the enhanced Fujita.
Before the
Right.
enhanced Fujita scale came into effect, it was an F4, and that was and in total that outbreak was smaller, but it led to 5 fatalities and 350 injuries. So it wasn't, and probably that was all because back then in 1952, warnings were not as good. I think I even remember. I don't know if it was before 1952 or after or around that time.
You remember before 1952?
Oh yeah, I know. Back in the day, yeah.
Are you a time traveler?
No, I read about it, Mike. Come on. I'm
Okay.
not a time traveler. Why would you think I'm a time traveler? That's a crazy idea. Definitely not a time traveler. So I read about it that I guess the Weather Bureau was what they were called at the time. They did not want to say the word tornado because they were afraid that it would cause like mass hysteria.
Oh yeah, I
and,
do
like,
remember something about
remember
this.
that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that the word tornado was not used very well. And of course, I think that changed in the 60s. I think they started to really like, okay, this is a tornado warning. Like, I don't know what they called it, but they didn't like to just throw out the word tornado willy nilly because it was like such a taboo word at the time.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I think that might be another reason why, you'd have like a lot of injuries and fatalities and problems because there wasn't a lot of like warning for it. Like you probably knew about the tornado like seconds before it hit. Now we have, I think, a good amount of lead time. It's not the best still. Like we could do way better, but it's way better than what it was. So, I mean, if that same leap day outbreak happened in 1952, man, it would be way worse. Like I wouldn't even want to think about how bad that would have been.
Well, that's why they had sirens back then. I mean, they're kind of obsolete these days, but I mean, nobody had phones.
They
And,
still have sirens now. I mean, they still
yeah,
still
they
use
do,
them.
but I think they're only because they're still around because but they're not building new sirens now because everyone gets the.
Well, a lot of the
word now.
sirens were also kind of leftovers from World War II as well.
Yeah,
The bomb
yeah,
raids.
you're right.
So
It's-
they honestly came in
Yeesh.
handy for that. So a good thing. What's up, Mike?
No, I was just, talking about World War II and stuff and using those sirens for tornadoes, and it was just kind of crazy to me. I was also trying to figure out, when did they change the tornado scale from the F scale to the EF scale? I feel like that was not many years ago.
No, I think it was what 2010, somewhere back then.
2007.
2007.
It was right before my WeatherWorks career. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
February 1st, 2007, it got changed.
No, because I remember a time when, there was a point where, people were saying F and then, no, it's EF and no,
Yeah.
it's F, So there was a time, and I remember that, but that was that happened a year before I started at WeatherWorks. So
Okay.
that's interesting because I remember before, correcting people, no, it's EF.
Well, EF, why it's enhanced, right? Because it takes into account not just the wind speed, because I think that's what the Fujita scale was, primarily wind speed. This is
Right.
wind speed plus damage.
Right.
So that's why sometimes if you have these large tornadoes that go through cornfields and they don't damage anything, you might ask yourself, "Oh, that's like an EF4," but then it's like it doesn't
Didn't do
damage
any
anything.
damage, so it's probably more like an EF2.
It's probably an EF2 or an EF3.
Yeah.
Like realistically, if that same tornado went through a residential, area or a downtown area, it probably would have been classified higher because it would have done more damage. But because it happened in, the middle of Nebraska in a cornfield, maybe a couple of cows got thrown around, unfortunately. But like, that's, I mean,
The cows are thinking to themselves like, wait, man, what about us?
Yeah.
You rate this thing an EF2? I got thrown 2 miles away.
My
Ended
milk's
up
all
in
over the place.
Farmer Bob's field instead of Farmer John's. Like, what?
Mike's
Sorry.
drinking again on the job.
No, I swear this is water in this.
oh my God. I'm sorry I
in this
brought it up.
bottle.
But anyway, EF, yeah, the enhanced Fujita scale is based off of damage and wind speed. So again, an F4 back in 1952 is probably not the same as an EF4 today because it's probably way different in terms of the scale of wind and damage. But yeah, I think that's all I have on Leap Day. I'm sure we're probably missing a couple more things, but they're either minor or not in the United States. I mean, we could probably look at world weather with Leap Day.
Oh,
And
yeah,
there could
yeah.
be probably tons of things on that day, but we'd probably be here for 2 hours if we did that.
Yeah.
But it's probably getting to be around that time that we sign off here, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, another fun one here, doing the old leap year, and hopefully the listeners out there learned a few things about the weather that happened on leap year, and also,
I know I did.
why we do leap year, and of course, space time and all that kind of fun stuff that we talked about too.
And we got to celebrate Leap Day today.
Don't forget about the cow.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Don't forget about your leaplings too. Make sure you check up on them and tell them happy birthday.
That's true. That's true. Well, that's it for this leap year podcast for the Weather Lounge. So be sure to follow WeatherWorks at weatherworksinc.com. Also, follow WeatherWorks on all those social media platforms out there. You can find us on just about every one. So it's been a good time, and we'll talk to you soon.